My name is Mitchell, I am 35 years old, and until last month, I thought I had a perfect marriage of 7 years. I work hard as a software engineer to give my wife Heather everything she could want. Then came the day I was scrolling through social media during lunch and saw her in Hawaii with another man. Not just any trip, but an engagement celebration with his family. The worst part? I paid for it all. So I blocked her bank card, then she completely lost it. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from and hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever had your trust betrayed. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. But when you love someone, you tend to explain away the red flags as temporary issues or simple misunderstandings. I met Heather at my college friend William's wedding 8 years ago. She was a bridesmaid, stunning in her blue dress, with an infectious laugh that carried across the reception hall. Our eyes met during the first dance, and by the time the cake was cut, we were inseparable. The connection was immediate and intense. We dated for exactly 1 year before I proposed on the same beach where we had our third date. Everyone said we were moving too fast, but when you know, you know. Or at least I thought I knew. After the wedding, we settled into a comfortable routine. I was climbing the ladder at a growing tech company, putting in long hours to establish myself as indispensable. My hard work paid off with regular promotions and bonuses. Meanwhile, Heather worked in marketing for a rival tech firm, though she changed jobs twice during our marriage. 3 years ago, we purchased our dream home in Oakwood Heights, an upscale neighborhood with manicured lawns and a community pool. The mortgage was steep, but my salary covered it comfortably. We agreed on a financial arrangement that seemed fair at the time, a joint account for household bills and separate savings accounts for personal goals and emergencies. Heather insisted on this arrangement for financial independence, which I respected. 6 months ago, I received a significant promotion to senior software engineer, leading a team developing a new cloud security platform. The promotion came with a substantial raise but also longer hours and occasional travel to our satellite office in Austin. I noticed subtle changes in our relationship as my workload increased. Weekend brunches became less animated. Movie nights involved less cuddling. Conversations grew shorter, often ending with Heather retreating to another room to answer work emails. I first noticed her guardedness with her phone around 4 months ago. She began taking calls in the bathroom or on our back deck. Her phone would be placed face down, and she changed her password twice in a month. When I casually asked about it, she mentioned something about a security breach at her company requiring regular password changes. There were other signs too. New clothes appeared in her closet. Dinner plans with colleagues extended later into the evening. A new perfume I never bought her. Weekend girls' trips became more frequent, though social media posts from her friends rarely featured her. I dismissed all these changes as consequences of her stressful project at work. She mentioned a major product launch that kept her team working late. I knew how demanding the tech industry could be, so I gave her space. When she seemed distant during our conversations, I blamed myself for being too absorbed in my own work challenges. About a month before everything fell apart, Heather came to me about a unique investment opportunity through her company. She needed $8,000 quickly to secure her position. It seemed unusual, but she had always been financially responsible. When I expressed mild concern, she became defensive, questioning if I trusted her judgment. To keep the peace and show my support, I transferred the money from our joint savings without further questions. This was not the first time I had financed one of her ventures. Last year, she started an online boutique that fizzled out after 3 months. Before that, she invested in a friend's catering business that never materialized. I always supported her ambitions, believing partnerships required mutual faith and encouragement. 2 weeks before the discovery, we celebrated our 7th anniversary. I arranged a private dinner at Angelo's, the Italian restaurant where we had our first date. The evening started well, with Heather wearing the silver necklace I had given her that morning. She seemed present, even affectionate, but declined the after-dinner drink I suggested, citing an early meeting the next day. That night was the last time we were intimate. There was something different in her touch, a hesitation I could not name then but now recognize as guilt. She cried afterward, which I mistakenly interpreted as emotional connection rather than what it truly was, remorse without repentance. The week before my discovery, Heather told me she needed to fly to Chicago to care for her mother, who had fallen ill with pneumonia. She would be gone for 10 days, possibly longer depending on her mother's recovery. I offered to accompany her, but she insisted she could handle it alone and that I should focus on my upcoming project deadline. I drove her to the airport on a Sunday morning, kissed her goodbye, and watched her walk through security with what I now realize was a performance of reluctance. For the first few days, communication was sparse but seemingly normal. Short texts about her mother's condition, complaints about the hospital food, and brief, good night messages. I sent flowers to her mother's address, never suspecting they would arrive at an empty house. Every night I called to check in. Conversations were brief, with airport announcements occasionally audible in the background, which she explained away as hospital intercoms. I never once questioned her story. Not once. That blind trust was about to shatter in the most public and humiliating way possible. The revelation came on an ordinary Wednesday. I was at my desk, unwrapping the turkey sandwich I had grabbed from the deli across the street, scrolling through social media during my lunch break. It was a mindless habit, a brief escape from coding and meetings. As I scrolled through my feed, a photo posted by our mutual friend Lauren caught my eye. Lauren had posted a series of beach sunset photos from her vacation in Maui with the caption, "Paradise found!" I double-tapped to like it, and was about to scroll past when something in the background of the third picture made me freeze. There, sitting at a beachside bar in the distance, was a woman who looked remarkably like Heather. Same blonde hair styled in the loose waves she favored. Same oversized sunglasses she had purchased during our anniversary trip to San Diego last year. My sandwich forgotten, I zoomed in on the image. The resolution blurred, but that distinctive laugh with head thrown back was unmistakable. My wife, who was supposedly in Chicago tending to her sick mother, was clearly enjoying a tropical cocktail in Hawaii. Confusion was my first reaction, not anger. There had to be a logical explanation. Perhaps Lauren was posting old photos. Maybe Heather had a doppelganger. I checked the timestamp, posted 3 hours ago. I clicked on Lauren's profile and began scrolling through more recent uploads. There were dozens of photos from her Hawaiian vacation, and in the background of several more, partially obscured but definitely present, was Heather. My heart pounding, I expanded my search. I looked up the resort tagged in Lauren's posts and browsed their recent social media activity. In a post about a luau from the previous evening, I spotted Heather again, this time clearly identifiable, standing next to a tall man with his arm wrapped possessively around her waist. With trembling fingers, I began searching for the man's identity. I did not recognize him immediately, but something about his posture seemed familiar. I searched through my own photos from Heather's company holiday party 6 months ago and found him. Trevor Phillips, a marketing director who had recently joined Heather's team. I remembered feeling a twinge of discomfort at how enthusiastically they discussed campaign strategies that night, but I had dismissed it as professional camaraderie. Driven by a growing sense of dread, I searched Trevor's name on various platforms until I found his sister's public account. What I discovered there destroyed any hope of an innocent explanation. Her most recent post showed a large family group on a catamaran. The caption read, "Celebrating Trevor and Heather's engagement with the whole Phillips clan. So happy to welcome our future sister-in-law to the family." The timestamp was yesterday. The photo showed Heather beaming, an unfamiliar diamond ring prominently displayed on her left hand, next to her wedding band. My wedding band. The post had dozens of congratulatory comments, including one from Heather thanking everyone for making this special occasion so memorable. I sat paralyzed, my body physically present in the office while my mind struggled to process this catastrophic betrayal. Memories rearranged themselves, taking on sinister new meanings. The late nights. The changed passwords. The investment opportunity, that coincided perfectly with the timing of this Hawaiian trip. With methodical precision born of shock, I logged into our online banking portal. The evidence was there in black and white: airplane tickets to Honolulu purchased 3 weeks ago, resort charges, restaurant bills, excursion fees, all charged to our joint account. The same account I had been depositing my paychecks into faithfully for years. The investment opportunity, money had been withdrawn as cash the day before her departure, likely spending money for their romantic getaway. My hands began to shake so violently that I knocked my water bottle onto my keyboard. The spreadsheet I had been working on that morning blurred as my vision tunneled. I felt a wave of nausea rise in my throat. I called Heather immediately. The call went straight to voicemail. I texted, "Need to talk to you urgently." No response. I called again, and again reached voicemail. I sent another text. "I know you're in Hawaii. With Trevor. Call me immediately." 5 minutes passed. 10. No response. I excused myself to the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and experienced what I now know was a panic attack. My chest tightened painfully. Sweat drenched my shirt. The fluorescent lights seemed suddenly too bright, too harsh. For 15 minutes, I focused solely on breathing, on regaining enough composure to walk back to my desk without collapsing. When I returned, there was still no response from Heather. I called her mother, my hands still trembling. "Hello, Mitchell! What a nice surprise," she answered cheerfully. "Hi, Sandra, I just wanted to check how you're feeling. Is the pneumonia improving?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Pneumonia? What are you talking about, dear? I'm fit as a fiddle. Just got back from my pickleball tournament." The silence that followed was deafening. I mumbled something about a misunderstanding and ended the call, my suspicions confirmed in the cruelest way. Heather had lied about everything. Her mother had never been sick. She had flown to Hawaii for an engagement celebration with another man, using my money to finance their infidelity. I searched for more evidence, compelled by some masochistic need to understand the full scope of the betrayal. A quick search of Trevor's limited public photos showed interactions between them dating back at least 6 months. Comments from Heather became increasingly familiar and intimate over time. In one photo from 3 months ago, she had left a heart emoji comment. Trevor had replied with a private joke I did not understand. I remembered that weekend clearly. I had been working on a critical system update, ordering takeout, and apologizing to Heather for the interrupted weekend plans. She had been surprisingly understanding, mentioning plans to catch up on reading. Instead, based on the timestamp of her comment, she had been communicating with Trevor while I worked 20 feet away in our home office. As the initial shock began to subside, a cold anger took its place. I checked our credit card statements and discovered more disturbing charges: lingerie purchases, hotel charges in our own city on nights she claimed to be working late, restaurant bills for 2 at establishments far too expensive for casual business meetings. By 4:30 that afternoon, I had compiled a damning digital record of Heather's deception. Screenshots of social media posts, bank and credit card statements, timeline inconsistencies. A comprehensive picture of betrayal that spanned at least half a year, possibly longer. I made one final attempt to reach Heather. This time, I left a voicemail. "I know everything about Hawaii, Trevor, and the engagement. I know about the money. Do not contact me until you're ready to tell the truth." My voice was eerily calm, detached, as if someone else was speaking through me. As I gathered my things to leave the office, my boss Gregory noticed my distraction. "Everything okay, Mitchell? You seem off today." I considered lying, maintaining the professional facade that had become second nature. Instead, I heard myself say, "My wife is in Hawaii getting engaged to another man. With money from our joint account." Gregory's stunned expression would have been comical in any other context. He guided me to his office, closed the door, and offered me compassionate leave. 2 weeks paid. No questions asked? I accepted gratefully, knowing I would need time to dismantle the life I thought we were building together. The drive home was a blur. I nearly sideswiped a delivery truck, my mind replaying images of Heather and Trevor celebrating their engagement, while I sat oblivious at home, believing my wife was caring for her sick mother. By the time I pulled into our driveway, my shock had hardened into resolve. This betrayal would not define me, but my response to it might. Our house, once a sanctuary, felt like a museum dedicated to a relationship that never truly existed. I walked from room to room, seeing evidence of Heather's premeditated departure that I had been too trusting to notice. Her closet was partially emptied, with gaps where her favorite clothes had been. The vintage jewelry box her grandmother had given her was missing from her dresser. Several photo albums were gone from the bookshelf. She had been systematically removing sentimental items for weeks, preparing for her new life while sleeping beside me each night. In her drawer, beneath a stack of winter sweaters, I found a receipt for an engagement ring from Bergen Jewelers dated 3 months prior. Not Trevor purchasing a ring for her, but Heather buying a ring for him. The traditional proposal dynamic reversed in their secret relationship, another indication of how thoroughly she had committed to this new life. My next call was to Raymond, my friend since college and the only person besides Gregory who knew about our marriage struggles. "I need you," was all I managed to say when he answered. "Where are you?" he asked immediately. "Home. I'm on my way." 20 minutes. While waiting for Raymond, I called Heather's mother back, this time prepared for the conversation. "Sandra, I need to tell you something difficult," I began. "Heather is not in Chicago with you. She's in Hawaii with a man named Trevor Phillips. They're celebrating their engagement." Her confusion quickly turned to distress. "What are you talking about? Engagement? But she's married to you. I just found out myself. She's been having an affair for months. She told me you were sick with pneumonia to explain her absence." Sandra's sob was gut-wrenching. "Mitchell, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. This isn't how we raised her." After assuring Sandra I didn't blame her, I ended the call as Raymond arrived. He took one look at my face and pulled me into a bear hug. Then, always the practical one, he guided me to the kitchen table. "Tell me everything, then we'll make a plan," he said. I recounted the day's discoveries while Raymond took notes, his expression darkening with each new detail. When I finished, he organized his thoughts into actionable items. "First, financial damage control," he said. "Call your bank immediately." With Raymond beside me for moral support, I called the bank and explained the situation to the account manager. I requested an immediate freeze on all joint accounts and removal of Heather's access to our shared credit cards. The representative was surprisingly understanding, explaining this scenario was unfortunately common. "I recommend setting up entirely new accounts," she advised. "And you should check your credit report for any accounts you may not be aware of." Next came the credit card companies. I canceled all joint cards and removed Heather as an authorized user on my personal accounts. Each call became slightly easier than the last, my voice gaining strength as I reclaimed control over the financial aspects of my life. As I finished the last call, my phone buzzed with a text from Heather. "Why isn't my card working?" Raymond read the message over my shoulder and advised. "Don't answer yet. She doesn't know how much you know. That gives you leverage." More messages followed in quick succession. "Mitchell, my card was declined at dinner. Is there a problem with our account? Hello? This is embarrassing. Can you check what's wrong? Are you ignoring me? What's going on with the cards? Mitchell, this isn't funny. Trevor's family is here and I can't pay the bill." I silenced my phone, following Raymond's advice to let her stew in the consequences of her actions. Instead, I called a locksmith to change the locks on the house and scheduled an appointment with Natalie Fisher, a divorce attorney Raymond's cousin had used the previous year. "She'll take your case even though it's after hours," Raymond assured me. "I already texted her the basics." While waiting for Natalie's call, I methodically documented valuables throughout the house, photographing artwork, electronics, and jewelry, focusing particularly on items purchased with my separate funds or inherited from my family. I gathered important documents, birth certificates, property deeds, insurance policies, and investment statements. Natalie called at 7:30 that evening. Her voice was brisk and professional as she advised me on immediate protective measures. Wisconsin is a marital property state, but your prenuptial agreement should help if it was properly executed, she explained. Email me a copy tonight. Meanwhile, don't leave the house. Possession matters. Document everything. Record any conversations with your wife, which is legal in Wisconsin with single-party consent. She scheduled an in-person consultation for the following morning, emphasizing the importance of moving quickly to protect my interests. After completing the most urgent tasks, the adrenaline that had sustained me throughout the day began to fade. Raymond ordered pizza, though neither of us had much appetite. We sat in silence in the living room, the TV on but unwatched. You can stay with Andrea and me if you need to get out of here, Raymond offered. His wife Andrea had always been kind to me, even when my work schedule prevented us from socializing as couples. Thanks, but Natalie said to stay in the house. Property possession or something. Raymond nodded. Then I'll crash on your couch tonight. You shouldn't be alone. My phone had been buzzing incessantly. 23 texts and 12 missed calls from Heather. The most recent message simply read, "Answer your phone." This is serious. With Raymond's encouragement, I finally replied with a single text. Enjoying Hawaii? How's your mother's pneumonia? The typing indicator appeared immediately, stopped, reappeared, stopped again. Finally, we need to talk. Yes, we do, I replied. But not tonight. I turned off my phone completely, unwilling to allow her response to invade what little peace I had managed to construct. That night, in our bed that suddenly seemed too large, I stared at the ceiling until dawn, mentally cataloging 7 years of memories that now required re-examination. Had any of it been real? The question haunted me until exhaustion finally pulled me into a fitful sleep. The morning brought a barrage of increasingly desperate messages from Heather. I documented each one methodically, creating a timeline of her shifting tactics. The progression from confusion to anger to manipulation was textbook, according to Natalie, who reviewed the messages during our 9 o'clock meeting. This is actually helpful, she said, scrolling through screenshots. She's admitting to being in Hawaii when she claimed to be in Chicago. That's evidence of deception that strengthens our case. Natalie's office projected competence and success, with wall-to-wall law books and framed credentials. She explained that my prenuptial agreement was solid but recommended hiring a forensic accountant to trace the misappropriated funds. Your wife has been planning this for months, Natalie explained. People who cheat in relationships often cheat financially too. We need to know exactly what we're dealing with. When my phone rang with Heather's number shortly after noon, Natalie nodded her approval. Answer it. Remember, Wisconsin is a one-party consent state for recordings. I activated the recording app Raymond had installed on my phone and answered with a simple, "Hello? Mitchell, finally! What is going on? None of our cards are working, and the bank says I don't have access to our accounts anymore." Heather's voice had the practiced distress I had fallen for countless times before. "Where are you right now?" I asked calmly. "I told you, I'm in Chicago with Mom. She's doing better, but—" "Stop lying, Heather. I know you're in Hawaii with Trevor Phillips and his family. I know about the engagement celebration. I know everything." The silence that followed was deafening. "How did you—" she began. "Social media. Lauren is also in Maui. She posted pictures. You're in the background of several of them." Trevor's sister's Instagram was particularly informative about the engagement celebration. Another long pause. I could hear her breathing quicken. "Mitchell, I can explain. This isn't what it looks like." "Really?" "Because it looks like you're celebrating an engagement to another man using money from our joint account. Money you claimed was for a business investment. It looks like you've been lying about your mother being sick to cover up a romantic vacation with your lover, and his family. You're making it sound worse than it is, she protested weakly. How should I make it sound, Heather? Help me understand how my wife of 7 years getting engaged to her coworker while still married to me could be framed positively. Her tone shifted, the pretense of innocence abandoned. You haven't been present in our marriage for months, Mitchell. Always working, always distracted. Trevor values my company. He makes time for me. We celebrated our anniversary 2 weeks ago. I countered. I took the day off. We went to Angelo's. You wore the necklace I gave you that morning. Was that all an act while you were planning this trip? That's not fair, she said, her voice hardening. One romantic dinner doesn't make up for months of neglect. I have needs, Mitchell. Emotional needs that weren't being met. So you decided to fulfill those needs by committing fraud? By stealing from our joint account? By lying to my face daily? My voice remained steady, though inside I was shaking. I didn't steal anything. That money was just as much mine as yours. The prenup you insisted on would disagree, I replied. Section 6 specifically addresses misappropriation of joint funds for extramarital activities. There was a rustling sound, then a new voice came on the line. Mitchell, this is Trevor. Look, this situation is unfortunate, but threatening Heather isn't going to solve anything. I'm not threatening anyone, I replied. I'm stating facts. Fact 1. Heather is still legally married to me. Fact 2. She used joint funds under false pretenses to finance your engagement celebration. Fact 3. I have documented everything and consulted an attorney. We have rights too. Trevor blustered. You can't just cut off access to shared resources without notice. Our attorney will. Your attorney will advise you that fraud and misrepresentation invalidate any claims Heather might make to those shared resources. I interrupted. But please, feel free to pursue this legally. I have 6 months of documentation ready for discovery. Trevor's confidence wavered. This isn't over, he muttered before apparently handing the phone back to Heather. Mitchell, please. Her voice had taken on the tearful quality that once would have immediately softened my resolve. We need to talk about this rationally when I get back. This relationship with Trevor, it just happened. I never meant to hurt you. How long? I asked. What? How long has this been going on? She hesitated. Does it matter? It matters to me. Another pause. 6 months, she finally admitted. Maybe a little longer. 6 months. Half a year of deception while sharing my bed, my home, my life. When do you return from Hawaii? I asked, my voice mechanical. Sunday evening. Mitchell, please don't do anything drastic before we can talk in person. The locks have been changed, I informed her. If you need to collect personal belongings, contact my attorney to arrange a supervised visit. You can't keep me out of my own home. Heather's composure finally cracked. I'll call the police. Please do. I'm sure they'd be interested in the bank statements showing how you financed this trip. Before she could respond, I ended the call. My hands were surprisingly steady as I stopped the recording and forwarded it to Natalie. The remainder of that day was spent implementing Natalie's strategic advice. I installed a security system with cameras at the front and back doors. I arranged for mail forwarding to a post office box to prevent Heather from intercepting sensitive documents. I opened new individual bank accounts at a different institution and transferred my direct deposit information with my employer's HR department. Each action built a protective wall between my past life and whatever uncertain future awaited me. When Raymond called to check in, I was able to report progress with a detachment that surprised even me. You sound better, he observed cautiously. Not better, I clarified. Just focused. That evening, Heather's sister Julia called, her tone accusatory. How could you humiliate my sister like this? Cutting off her funds while she's on vacation? She's devastated. Did she mention she's on vacation with her fiancé? While still married to me? Julia's righteous indignation faltered. She said you were having problems? That you were emotionally unavailable. Did she mention using our joint savings to finance her engagement trip under the guise of a business investment? Or lying about your mother being hospitalized with pneumonia? Mom isn't sick, Julia said slowly, confusion evident in her voice. Exactly. That was Heather's cover story for the Hawaii trip. The silence stretched uncomfortably before Julia spoke again, her voice smaller. I didn't know, Mitchell. I swear. She told me you two were separated. We weren't. We aren't. Not yet, anyway. After ending the call with Julia, I received a text from Heather's father, a man I had always respected. Son, we raised her better than this. Your mother-in-law and I are heartbroken. Whatever happens between you two, know that we care about you. That simple message of support cracked the emotional dam I had built throughout the day. Alone in our bedroom, surrounded by photographs of happier times, I finally allowed myself to grieve for the marriage I thought I had. The tears came without warning, hot and relentless, until exhaustion pulled me into dreamless sleep. By Friday morning, word of our separation had spread through our social circle. My phone buzzed constantly with messages of concern and support, along with the occasional accusatory text from Heather's loyal friends who had heard only her version of events. I responded to each with simple thanks or not at all, following Natalie's advice to limit public commentary on the situation. Raymond insisted I stay with him and Andrea for the weekend, concerned about my mental state if I remained alone in the house filled with reminders of Heather. I reluctantly agreed, packing enough clothes for several days and setting the new security system before leaving. At 3:17 Saturday afternoon, my phone alerted me to motion detected at our front door. The security camera showed Heather and Trevor attempting to enter with her key, then looking confused and angry when it didn't work. Trevor pounded on the door while Heather peered through the windows. They're back early, I noted to Raymond, showing him the live feed. Probably realized the Hawaii gig was up once you confronted them, he replied. What now? Now we wait. Natalie said not to engage directly. We didn't have to wait long. Within an hour, I received a call from the local police department. Mr. Wilson? This is Officer Mendez. We have a domestic situation at your residence. Your wife is claiming illegal lockout from her primary residence. She has not been locked out, I explained calmly. She's currently involved with another man and attempted to return to our home unannounced and with him present. I've changed the locks for my safety and to protect our assets following her misappropriation of joint funds. I'm staying with friends temporarily but maintain legal residence there. The officer's tone shifted slightly. Do you have documentation of this situation? Any police reports filed? I have extensive documentation of financial misappropriation and evidence of infidelity. My attorney has all relevant paperwork. Her name is Natalie Fisher. I see, said Officer Mendez. In that case, as the legal homeowner present on the deed, you're within your rights to secure the property. Your wife is entitled to collect personal belongings with proper notice. I understand. Please inform her that she can contact my attorney to arrange a supervised visit for that purpose. After ending the call, I contacted Natalie, who immediately arranged for a professional mediator to supervise Heather's property collection the following day. Having a neutral third party present protects both of you, she explained. It prevents claims of property damage or theft later. Sunday afternoon found me standing in our living room beside Charlotte Burke, the court-appointed mediator. Her presence was reassuring as Heather arrived, predictably with Trevor in tow. Mr. Phillips cannot enter the premises, Charlotte informed them firmly. The agreement specifies Mrs. Wilson and one female friend or family member only. Trevor started to protest, but Heather silenced him with a touch on his arm. Julia is meeting me here, she said, gesturing toward her sister's car pulling into the driveway. The next 2 hours were excruciating. I remained in the kitchen while Heather and Julia moved through the house collecting her personal items, Charlotte documenting everything removed. Occasionally, Heather would attempt conversation, her tone alternating between nostalgia and blame. Remember when we bought this coffee table in Boston? Or, I never wanted to hurt you, but you were so absorbed in your work. I responded minimally, focusing on maintaining composure. Trevor paced outside on the sidewalk, occasionally visible through the front windows, his presence a constant reminder of the betrayal. When they had filled Julia's car with clothes and personal effects, Heather paused at the door. "This isn't how I wanted things to end," she said quietly. "You're still wearing your wedding ring," I observed. "Along with your new engagement ring." She glanced down at her left hand, where both rings coexisted incongruously. "I haven't figured everything out yet," she admitted. "I have," I replied, closing the door gently but firmly. The following week brought more complications. The forensic accountant Natalie had discovered several concerning financial irregularities. Heather had been systematically diverting small amounts from our joint account to a private account for over a year, accumulating nearly $20,000 through hundreds of minor transactions. More disturbingly, the accountant found evidence of 2 credit cards opened in my name without my knowledge. Both were nearly maxed out with charges to restaurants, hotels, and jewelry stores. A credit report revealed significant debt I had been unaware of, all traceable to Heather's activities. "This is actually good news for your case," Natalie explained during our update meeting. "Financial infidelity strengthens our position regarding the prenuptial enforcement." I met with Brian Holden, a financial advisor recommended by my company's Employee Assistance Program, to assess the damage to my credit and develop a recovery plan. The meeting was sobering but productive. "You're looking at 12 to 18 months to repair your credit score," Brian explained. "But the fraud alerts we've placed should prevent further damage." Throughout this period, Heather's approach shifted repeatedly. Her initial angry demands gave way to tearful appeals, then to apparent acceptance, followed by renewed hostility. Each phase was documented meticulously for the upcoming divorce proceedings. The reactions from our families and social circle were equally varied. Heather's parents remained supportive of me, their disappointment in their daughter evident in the occasional text messages checking on my well-being. Her sister Julia, after seeing the evidence of Heather's deception, maintained cautious communication with both of us, caught in an impossible position. Trevor's family, initially celebratory about the engagement based on social media posts, began distancing themselves as details emerged. His mother Barbara contacted me privately through LinkedIn with a cryptic message. "This situation seems familiar. Please call me when you can." Our mutual friends divided along predictable lines. Those who knew us as a couple generally expressed shock and support for me. Heather's individual friends largely took her side, though a few reached out privately to express doubts about her version of events. My work performance inevitably suffered despite Gregory's continued support. Concentration became nearly impossible as legal and financial issues demanded constant attention. Sleep remained elusive, and my weight dropped noticeably as appetite disappeared. Raymond and Andrea insisted on regular dinner invitations, ensuring I ate at least a few proper meals each week. 6 weeks after the initial discovery, I hit my lowest point. Sitting alone in our home office, surrounded by financial statements and legal documents, the full magnitude of the betrayal overwhelmed me. Every memory now required re-examination. Every happy moment called into question. Had she been thinking of Trevor during our anniversary dinner? Had she been comparing us all along? In that moment of despair, I texted Raymond a message that later frightened me with its implications. "Sometimes I wonder if any of this is worth it." His response was immediate, a phone call, then his presence at my door 20 minutes later. That night, he and Andrea insisted I return to their guest room, refusing to leave me alone in what Andrea called that museum of betrayal. The next morning, Andrea connected me with her brother Connor, a therapist specializing in relationship trauma. Our first session was revelatory, providing language for emotions I had been unable to articulate. "What you're experiencing is complicated grief," Connor explained. "You're mourning not just the end of your marriage, but the loss of your perception of that marriage. Your history has been rewritten without your consent." That framework, clinical though it was, provided a foothold on the slippery slope of my emotional recovery. I wasn't crazy for feeling disoriented. I wasn't weak for struggling to function. I was experiencing a normal response to an abnormal situation. Meanwhile, Trevor's confidence in their relationship showed signs of fracturing. Barbara, his mother, finally spoke with me by phone, revealing a pattern I found disturbingly familiar. "Trevor has done this before," she confided. "His ex-wife discovered his affair with a colleague in almost identical circumstances. He convinced this woman to leave her husband, promising a future together, then became distant once the excitement faded." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I love my son, but I don't condone his behavior," she replied sadly. "This destructive pattern needs to stop, and sometimes consequences are the only effective teacher." With Barbara's permission, I forwarded her contact information to Natalie, who added her potential testimony to our growing case file. The divorce proceedings, initially contentious, began shifting in my favor as evidence accumulated and Heather's narrative unraveled under scrutiny. A turning point came when Trevor confronted me outside my office building one evening, his appearance disheveled and his manner aggressive. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," he accused, stepping into my path. "Just sign the settlement offer and move on. That settlement ignores the prenuptial agreement and our documented financial history," I replied calmly, aware of witnesses nearby. "It's not happening. You think you're so perfect," he sneered. "Heather told me everything about your controlling behavior, your emotional neglect. Did she also tell you about the $20,000 she diverted from our joint account? Or the credit card she opened in my name? Did she mention lying about her mother being hospitalized to cover your Hawaiian engagement party?" Trevor's expression faltered. Before he could respond, Gregory emerged from the building and intervened, his imposing presence ending the confrontation before it escalated further. Later that evening, I received an unexpected text from Heather. "We need to talk. Without lawyers. Without Trevor." The coffee shop Heather suggested was neutral territory, a place we had never frequented as a couple. I arrived 15 minutes early, selecting a table with clear sight lines to the exits, a habit developed during weeks of anxiety and hypervigilance. Natalie had advised against meeting without legal representation but understood my need for direct answers that legal proceedings might never provide. Heather arrived precisely on time, her appearance both familiar and strange. She had cut her hair into a short bob I had never seen before. She wore a simple blue dress and minimal makeup, presenting a stark contrast to the polished image she had maintained throughout our marriage. "Thank you for coming," she began, hands wrapped around her coffee mug. "I know you didn't have to." "Why am I here, Heather?" I asked directly. She took a deep breath. "Things with Trevor aren't what I expected. He's different now that everything's out in the open." "That's not my concern," I replied evenly. "Your relationship with Trevor is your business." "I know. I just..." She hesitated. "I wanted to apologize. Not for legal reasons or to change the divorce terms. Just, as one human to another. What I did was wrong. The lies, the money, all of it." The apology, unexpected and seemingly genuine, momentarily disarmed me. For weeks, I had imagined this conversation, anticipated manipulative tactics and prepared counterarguments. Simple contrition hadn't figured into those scenarios. "Why did you do it?" The question that had haunted me for months finally emerged, more vulnerable than I intended. Heather's eyes filled with tears. "I don't have a good answer. At first, it was flattering attention when you were distracted with the promotion. Then it became exciting, forbidden. By the time I realized how deep I'd gotten, it seemed easier to keep going than to face what I'd done." "And the engagement? The Hawaii trip?" Trevor pushed for commitment. Said we needed to make it official if we were serious. I got caught up in the fantasy of it all. She twisted her hands nervously. "I'm not wearing either ring anymore," she added, displaying her bare left hand. I nodded, acknowledging the information without commenting on its significance. The financial issues go beyond poor judgment, Heather. The diverted funds, the credit cards in my name, that was systematic deception. I know, she whispered. I started small, just private money for things I wanted without discussion. Then it became a habit, then a necessity to maintain the double life. I never intended the debt to get so out of control. Intentions don't erase consequences. I understand that now. She looked directly at me for the first time. I signed the revised settlement agreement. My lawyer has the paperwork. I'm not contesting the prenup terms anymore. This was the last thing I had expected. The settlement negotiations had been aggressive, with Heather's initial attorney making demands far beyond what the prenuptial agreement allowed. A sudden capitulation seemed suspicious. Why the change? I asked cautiously. Because it's fair, she admitted. And because fighting it was just prolonging pain for both of us. She hesitated before adding, Trevor and I are taking a break. I'm staying with Julia while I figure things out. I absorbed this information with surprising detachment. Weeks earlier, any hint of trouble in their relationship might have sparked vindictive satisfaction or even hope for reconciliation. Now, it was simply a data point, relevant to the proceedings but not to my emotional state. I wish you clarity, I said finally, meaning it despite everything. For both our sakes. Our conversation lasted just under an hour, covering practical matters of remaining property division and the timeline for finalizing the divorce. When we parted, Heather attempted a hug that I gently sidestepped, offering a handshake instead. The formality felt appropriate, a recognition that whatever intimacy we once shared had been irrevocably broken. Natalie confirmed the next day that the signed settlement had indeed been delivered, containing all the terms we had requested. This is unusual but welcome, she noted. Still, we'll verify everything before proceeding. With the legal battle unexpectedly simplified, I found energy to refocus on other aspects of my life. Gregory's earlier offer of a promotion to development team lead, which I had deferred during the chaos, was still available. I accepted, grateful for the professional vote of confidence when my personal judgment felt so questionable. You've handled this situation with remarkable professionalism, Gregory commented during our meeting to discuss the new role. That kind of resilience is exactly what we need in leadership. The promotion came with a significant salary increase and the opportunity to work with emerging technologies I had been passionate about before personal turmoil consumed my attention. The technical challenges provided welcome distraction, requiring focus that left little mental space for ruminating on betrayal. Raymond and Andrea continued their steadfast support, but I gradually resumed independence, returning to my house and establishing new routines. I joined a climbing gym that Raymond had been recommending for years, finding unexpected solace in the physical exertion and mental focus the sport required. Through the climbing community, I connected with people who knew nothing about my history, who judged me solely on my present actions and attitude. The simple pleasure of conversations uncomplicated by pity or curiosity about my divorce was refreshing. Cassandra, the IT forensics specialist who had helped uncover the extent of Heather's financial deception, became a regular climbing partner. Her analytical approach to problems complemented mine, and her direct communication style was a stark contrast to the emotional minefields I had navigated for months. The trick is to focus on the next hold, not the whole route at once, she advised during a particularly challenging climb. The metaphor wasn't lost on me, applicable to more than just scaling artificial rock walls. Our friendship developed naturally, beginning with post-climbing coffee discussions about cybersecurity and gradually expanding to include movie nights and weekend hikes. For the first time in months, I found myself laughing genuinely, engaged in conversation that stimulated intellectually without emotional complications. The legal proceedings continued their methodical progression. With Heather's cooperation, the process moved more quickly than Natalie had initially projected. The financial disentanglement was complex but proceeded without the acrimony that had characterized earlier stages. Trevor attempted contact several times, his messages alternating between apologetic and accusatory. I maintained minimal communication, responding only to specific questions about property division and referring all other matters to Natalie. Barbara, Trevor's mother, provided a formal statement documenting the pattern of behavior she had observed in previous relationships, strengthening our case regarding the misappropriated funds. Her decision to support truth over family loyalty impressed me, suggesting a moral courage I tried to emulate in my own conduct throughout the proceedings. 6 months after the initial discovery, I attended the final divorce hearing. Heather was present with her new attorney, a more reasonable woman who had helped craft the equitable settlement. Trevor was noticeably absent. The judge reviewed our agreement, noting its fairness and compliance with state law, before officially dissolving our marriage. As we left the courtroom, Heather approached me one last time. "I truly am sorry," she said quietly. "For whatever it's worth." "I know," I replied. "Take care of yourself, Heather." The exchange lacked drama or emotional intensity, simply the civil conclusion to a chapter in both our lives. I felt neither triumph nor despair walking out of the courthouse, just a quiet certainty that the worst was behind me. That evening, friends gathered at Raymond and Andrea's home for what they called a fresh start celebration. The supportive circle included old friends who had stood by me throughout the ordeal and new ones like Cassandra who represented the life I was building from the wreckage of betrayal. Midway through the evening, during a moment of laughter over Raymond's terrible karaoke attempt, I realized something profound. I was enjoying myself without reservation or guilt. The moment wasn't diminished by thoughts of Heather or comparisons to past happiness. It existed purely in the present, untainted by betrayal. Later, walking home under clear autumn stars, I called my parents, who had provided long-distance support throughout the ordeal. "The divorce was finalized today," I told them. "How are you feeling, son?" my father asked, concern evident even across the miles. "Surprisingly okay," I answered truthfully. "Not great yet, but okay. And okay feels like significant progress." My mother's wisdom, as always, provided perfect perspective. "Healing isn't linear, Mitchell. There will still be hard days. But you've survived the worst, and that's no small victory." That night, I slept soundly for the first time in months, without medication or exhaustion forcing unconsciousness. The house that had once felt like a museum of false memories was slowly becoming mine alone, filled with new associations and possibilities. The following week brought unexpected news. Trevor had accepted a position with a company in Seattle, effectively removing himself from our shared community. Heather, according to mutual friends, had moved to an apartment downtown and enrolled in graduate courses, pursuing the education she had often discussed but never prioritized during our marriage. These developments registered as neutral information rather than emotional triggers, further evidence of my progressing recovery. Their lives would continue on paths separate from mine, their choices no longer relevant to my well-being. My own path was clarifying as well. The promotion at work provided new challenges and opportunities for growth. My friendship with Cassandra evolved naturally into something more, proceeding with a transparency and honesty that felt revolutionary after years of undetected deception. "I want to know if you're ready for this," Cassandra said directly during our first official date. "I understand complicated histories. Everyone has them. But I need to know you're present here, not still tangled in what happened before." "I'm not completely healed," I admitted. "But I'm not looking for someone to fix me or replace what I lost. I'm interested in discovering what's possible with you, specifically now." That honesty established the foundation for a relationship unlike any I had experienced before, built on explicit communication rather than assumptions and mutual healing rather than dependency. 1 year after the fateful social media discovery, I accepted an invitation to speak at a financial literacy workshop organized by my bank. The topic: Protecting Yourself in Relationships. Financial Independence and Security. Standing before a room of strangers, I shared the painful lessons learned through betrayal without bitterness or self-pity. The vulnerability was terrifying but liberating, transforming private pain into potential protection for others facing similar situations. Trust is essential in relationships, I concluded. But so is verification, especially regarding shared finances. Love with open eyes. It's not cynical to protect yourself, it's self-respect. The positive response to that presentation led to others, creating an unexpected platform for education about financial infidelity and recovery. Each retelling made the story less personally painful, reframing it as a cautionary tale rather than a defining trauma. In this unexpected way, the betrayal that once threatened to destroy me became instead a foundation for helping others, a profound illustration that pain, properly processed, can become purpose. The final court documents arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered in a manila envelope that seemed too mundane to contain the official conclusion of 7 years of marriage. The judge's ruling upheld the settlement agreement in its entirety, protecting my financial assets as outlined in the prenuptial agreement, while acknowledging Heather's contributions to our shared life. The proceedings had been less contentious than anticipated, largely due to the overwhelming evidence of financial misconduct and Heather's eventual cooperation. The forensic accountant's detailed report had been particularly persuasive, documenting the systematic diversion of funds and unauthorized credit accounts with meticulous precision. During the final hearing, I had observed subtle tension between Heather and Trevor, seated at opposite ends of the same bench outside the courtroom. The engagement that had been celebrated so publicly in Hawaii appeared strained under the harsh fluorescent lights of the county courthouse. According to Julia, who maintained cautious communication with both of us, their relationship had disintegrated within months of the revelation. He wanted the excitement of forbidden romance, not the reality of building a life with someone capable of deception, she explained during one of our occasional coffee meetings. The irony isn't lost on her. My own perspective had evolved during the year-long legal process. The initial devastating pain had gradually transformed into something more complex, a sober recognition of mutual responsibility for the relationship's vulnerability, if not for the betrayal itself. Yes, my work schedule had created distance. Yes, I had sometimes prioritized professional advancement over emotional connection. These factors didn't justify Heather's choices but acknowledged the imperfect context in which they occurred. This nuanced understanding felt like progress, a step toward wisdom rather than mere survival. Following the court's final ruling, I arranged a brief meeting with Heather at the coffee shop that had become our neutral territory. Natalie had advised against it, concerned about reopening emotional wounds, but I felt a need for proper closure that legal documents couldn't provide. Heather arrived looking both familiar and changed. The superficial differences were obvious: new hairstyle, different fashion choices. But the fundamental transformation was in her demeanor, a quieter presence that suggested reflection had replaced reactivity. "I want you to know something," I began after we had exchanged awkward greetings. "I forgive you." Her surprise was evident. "Why?" "After everything I did." "Not for your benefit," I clarified. "For mine." Carrying anger isn't serving me anymore. Tears filled her eyes. "I don't deserve that." "Forgiveness isn't about deserving," I replied. "It's about choosing to set down a burden I'm tired of carrying." We talked for nearly an hour, not about reconciliation or regrets, but about lessons learned and paths forward. She had begun therapy, was reconnecting with family, and focusing on her graduate studies. Trevor had indeed moved to Seattle, their relationship ending with mutual recriminations and disappointment. "I'm trying to understand why I was capable of such deception," she admitted. "The therapist says it's about childhood patterns and fear of abandonment, but that feels like an excuse." "Understanding isn't the same as excusing," I offered. "I've had to face my own uncomfortable truths too." When we parted, there was a sense of completion rather than renewed connection. We had written the final paragraph of our shared story with unexpected grace, allowing each other to begin new chapters separately. 6 months later, my life had transformed in ways I couldn't have imagined during those dark days of discovery. The promotion at work had led to further opportunities, including leadership of an innovative cybersecurity initiative that challenged and energized me professionally. My relationship with Cassandra had developed steadily, built on explicit communication and mutual respect. Her background in IT forensics gave her unique insight into the financial betrayal I had experienced, while her own history of rebuilding after a difficult divorce provided common ground for understanding. "The difference is how we talk about everything," I explained to Raymond during one of our regular basketball games. "Nothing is assumed. Everything is discussed openly, even when it's uncomfortable." "Especially when it's uncomfortable," Raymond corrected with the wisdom of someone in a 15-year marriage. "That's when communication matters most." The financial recovery had progressed as well. The fraudulent accounts had been removed from my credit report, and disciplined financial management had restored my credit score to pre-divorce levels. I had established new accounts with sophisticated security measures and maintained vigilant monitoring of all financial activities. More importantly, I had developed a healthier relationship with money and trust. My new approach balanced reasonable caution with openness, informed by hard experience, but not crippled by suspicion. Working with a financial advisor, I had created a comprehensive plan that protected my assets while allowing for appropriate vulnerability in relationships. These practical lessons became the foundation for occasional speaking engagements at financial literacy workshops, where I shared my experience as a cautionary tale with a redemptive conclusion. The vulnerability of these presentations was challenging but rewarding, transforming personal pain into public education. The warning signs were there, I would explain to attentive audiences. Increased secrecy about spending. Defensive reactions to financial questions. Unexplained withdrawals justified with vague explanations. I missed them because I wasn't paying attention, because I thought trust meant not asking questions. These presentations inevitably led to private conversations with attendees experiencing similar situations, seeking advice or simply needing to be heard. Their stories reminded me that financial infidelity was surprisingly common, a hidden epidemic in relationships of all types. "What's your most important advice?" a young woman asked after one such workshop, her expression suggesting personal stakes in the question. "Maintain financial awareness even in the most trusting relationship," I replied. "And remember that protecting yourself isn't the same as expecting betrayal. It's about creating healthy boundaries that actually support trust rather than undermining it." Looking back on the journey from that fateful lunch break discovery to my current life, the transformation seemed both gradual and profound. The betrayal that had once defined my days had become instead a chapter in a longer story, important but not all-encompassing. The lessons learned had shaped my approach to relationships, finances, and self-worth. I had discovered resilience I didn't know I possessed and developed wisdom I couldn't have gained without pain. The experience had revealed true friends, exposed false assumptions, and ultimately led to greater authenticity in all aspects of life. Perhaps most surprisingly, I had emerged without bitterness. Caution, yes. Awareness of human capacity for deception, certainly. But not the corrosive cynicism that often follows betrayal. This felt like the most significant victory, preserving the capacity for trust despite compelling evidence for suspicion. Cassandra understood this balance intuitively. "Being betrayed doesn't make you naive," she observed during a weekend hike, the physical exertion creating space for philosophical reflection. "Continuing to believe in connection despite betrayal makes you brave." That perspective resonated deeply. Bravery, not foolishness. Hope, not denial. The willingness to risk vulnerability again, but with eyes wide open and boundaries firmly established. As I conclude this account of betrayal and recovery, I'm struck by how differently the story ended than I initially feared. In those first devastating days, I imagined myself permanently damaged, incapable of trust, defined forever by deception. The reality proved more nuanced and ultimately more hopeful. The truth is that while betrayal changes you, it need not diminish you. The pain is real and significant, but so is the growth that can follow if you remain open to its difficult lessons. The key lies not in forgetting, but in integrating the experience into a larger narrative of resilience and wisdom. If you're facing similar circumstances, know that the current pain is not your permanent state. The disorientation of betrayal eventually gives way to clarity. The isolation eventually yields to new connections. The story that seems to have ended actually contains the seeds of a new beginning, often better than you can currently imagine. Have you experienced betrayal that ultimately led to unexpected growth? What boundaries have you established in relationships to protect yourself while remaining open to connection? Share your story in the comments below, and remember to like and subscribe for more conversations about resilience through life's challenges. Thank you for allowing me to share my journey with you, and I wish you clarity and strength in whatever difficulties you may be facing. Remember, it's not the betrayal that defines you, but how you choose to rebuild afterward.